I did last episode's homework. I've been rapping my knuckle on every tabletop I pass, and the knock is different now that I know what it is. A relay of swinging atoms, handing the message along, delivered in lumps of h bar omega. But George left a debt on the books when he signed off, and today I'm collecting. The same furniture keeps appearing no matter what we put on the chain. Bands, zones, edges, gaps, for a quantum amplitude twisting over identical wells, for the doubled cell, and then for plain classical swinging with not one quantum idea in sight. Coincidence, I said, is off the table, and you didn't argue. You promised the theorem that makes bands not an accident of our models, but a law of crystals. And you called the plan a pincer, tight binding from one shore, nearly free from the other, and Bloch's theorem waiting in the middle. Today's the day?
Today's the day, and here's the shape of it. Job 1. Bloch's theorem in full, not just for electrons, but for every wave in every periodic medium, and a picture for why one symmetry forces all that furniture into existence. Job 2. The road this series has never walked. Everything we've ever built started from tightly bound electrons, deep wells, rare hops, a band assembled atom by atom. Today we start from the exact opposite, a completely free electron in empty space, and then the faintest whisper of a lattice switched on underneath it. If bands really are a law and not a habit of our models, the same gaps had better open at the same places from that side too. And when they do, the pincer closes, with a real metal caught in the middle of it.
Before anything gets promoted, let's be fair about what we already own. The motion episode didn't just name this theorem, it stated it. Any electron in any perfectly periodic potential, every energy eigenstate is a plane wave times a pattern that repeats cell for cell. A travelling wave wearing a periodic costume, you said, and our tight-binding twist got filed as one clean instance of the theorem. So today can't be the theorem's debut. What's actually new?
The promotion. And it's bigger than it sounds. Look at what the electron version leaned on. Not the charge, not the mass, not the fine print of the Schrödinger equation. The whole statement rested on one ingredient, the repetition of the medium. So the theorem never cared what was waving. Any wave in any periodic medium obeys it. A quantum amplitude over a chain of wells, an atomic swing running on springs, light crossing a layered stack of glass. Every steady wave pattern such a medium can hold is a long carrier wave wearing a costume that repeats cell for cell. The whole thing labeled by a twist K living in a zone. And last episode planted the clue. The comb and the zone survived after we threw every quantum ingredient away, and I told you to file that déjà vu. It was this theorem's shadow arriving early.
Then give me a picture that's worthy of the promotion, because the costume was tailored for an electron, a wave function wearing clothes. If the theorem owns trembling atoms and light in glass stacks too, I want an image that doesn't care what's doing the waving.
Here's the one I carry. Picture a stencil artist painting a fence of identical boards. The house rule. She cuts exactly one stencil, sized to a board, and every board gets printed with it. Because every board is the same board, the pattern has no license to change from one to the next. What can change is the rolling. One long, smooth wave sweeping down the fence, advancing its rhythm by a fixed step per board. Every pattern the fence can legally wear is exactly that. One repeating stencil, modulated by one long rolling wave. The stencil is the cell periodic costume, the local shape inside each cell. The rolling wave is the carrier. The fixed step per board is the twist, K. Electron, vibration, light. Change what's waving and you change the material the stencil is cut from. Never the rule.
So the medium cuts the stencil and the state chooses the roll. What I'm keeping is the prohibition. A crystal cannot make an arbitrary pattern. Stencil times rolling wave is the entire menu, patterns that repeat up to a twist and nothing else. Now earn it for me. At the very start of the series, we argued something like this for the chain. Identical sites, so the little arrow could only twist from site to site, never stretch. Is that the whole proof, scaled up?
It's the heart of it, and I'll give you the grown-up version, with the scope said out loud. The careful proof needs more machinery than we'll wheel out today, so take this as why it's believable, not as the full court record. The medium cannot tell one cell from the next. Every cell is the same place, same wells, same springs, same neighbors, identical out to the horizon. Now suppose a steady wave pattern genuinely differed from cell to cell, bigger here, shaped differently there. That pattern would be a way of telling cells apart, and nothing in the physics can underwrite the distinction. Whatever made the wave grow in this cell pushes identically in every cell, so it would have to grow at every step, forever. A runaway that blows up one way and dies the other, and nothing anywhere to justify picking a direction. Sound familiar? It's the same length arrow argument from the chain, wearing general clothes. The only cell-to-cell change that hides no distinction is a pure twist of phase, invisible to every measurement made inside a cell. Same print in every cell, fixed twist per step. That's Bloch from symmetry alone.
And the claim is that this one sentence, same print, fixed twist, carries every piece of furniture we've been tripping over all series. Bands, zones that close on themselves, folding that's somehow always legal. Walk me through the inventory.
Take them in order. The twist per cell is an angle, and an angle that grows by a full turn is the same angle, so twists a full turn apart name the same state. That's the redundancy, and it's why the zone closes on itself. K lives on a circle, not a line. Folding next. When the diatomic chain doubled the cell, the crease and the new filing labels looked like bookkeeping sleight of hand. Now you can see why it's always legal. Change what you call the repeating unit, and you change which twists count as a full turn, so the states simply get refiled under new labels. Nothing physical is allowed to move because the medium never asked what we called a cell. And bands, fix a twist, and the cell still has a discrete menu of stencils it can cut, a ladder of allowed local shapes, each with its own energy. Sweep the twist around its circle, and every rung sweeps out a smooth curve. The rungs become bands. The stretches the ladder skips become the gaps between them. One symmetry, all the furniture.
The landlord of every wave. And the lease terms are stencil, roll, twist on a circle. That's Road One's paperwork put in order. Tight binding was a well-behaved tenant all along. Now I want the pincer's other jaw, and it starts about as far from a crystal as physics gets. Throw the lattice away entirely. One electron, empty space, nothing else in the universe.
Nothing else. No wells, no hops, no cells, no stencil to cut. Just a free electron gliding through flat emptiness as a plane wave with twist K. And its energy is the oldest formula in the drawer. H bar squared times K squared, all divided by twice the mass. Here the shape of it. The energy grows as the square of the twist. A parabola, starting from rest at the bottom and rising smoothly, steeper and steeper forever. Every energy above the bottom is for sale at some twist. No forbidden strip anywhere on the menu. I think of it as an open highway. Any speed you like, the toll rising as the square of it, and the road running on without end in both directions.
And something is conspicuously missing from that highway. There's no Brillouin zone. The zone was born from redundancy, twists a full turn per cell apart naming the same state, and the redundancy needed cells, a repeat distance to twist per. Empty space has no cells, Between any two different twists, there's always somewhere the difference shows up. So no lattice means no redundancy, and no redundancy means no zone. K runs unrestricted, every twist a genuinely different state, off to infinity both ways.
Right, and it's worth pausing on why that matters. The zone was never a fact about waves, it's a fact about waves on a repeat. No repeat, no zone. So set the two shores side by side and feel how little they resemble each other. Tight binding, a narrow cosine band, a zone with edges, whole forbidden stretches above and below the menu. The free electron, one endless parabola, no zone, no edges, no gaps, nothing forbidden at any energy. Now we build the bridge between them, and we build it as gently as physics allows. Turn on a lattice, but only a whisper of one.
Hold on, a whisper meaning what exactly? Paint the scene properly. What's under the electron's feet now? And what does it feel as it rolls along?
A periodic hum, so faint it barely deserves the word potential. Shallow dips repeating every atom spacing, gentle ridges between them. Almost everywhere, at almost every twist, the parabola survives untouched. The highway stays open, every speed still for sale. But each dip does something a flat road never does. It reflects the passing wave. Weakly, a whisper of a reflection off every atom, a faint echo running back against the traffic. The electron's fate hangs entirely on what those echoes do to one another.
My gut says they should pile up regardless. It's an endless chain of atoms, each throwing back its echo, an infinite supply of whispers set against one wave. Why doesn't that always add up to a shout at every wavelength?
Because whispers carry a rhythm, and the rhythm is everything. Each atom's echo is born at a different spot, so by the time they overlap, they carry different lags. And remember the clock hands from the very start of the series. Adding waves is adding arrows. At a generic wavelength, the lags drift steadily. This atom's echo a little behind, the next further behind, the one after further still. Arrows pointing every which way around the dial. Some a long chain of evenly rotating arrows, and you walk in a circle. Nothing. The echoes eat each other alive, and the wave sails on as though the lattice weren't there. For the whispers to amount to anything, their lags have to line up.
And I'd stake the series' whole furniture budget on which wavelength does it. We've hit this spot from both directions already. The electron froze there in the motion episode. The lattice's own ripple froze there in the singing lattice. The wavelength of twice the atom spacing. One atom up, one atom down, repeat. And you told us back then, almost in passing, that in the fuller theory, this same Bragg reflection at the zone boundary is the thing that pries open the gaps between bands. So here's my claim. At exactly that wavelength, the echoes arrive in step, and however faint each one is, an endless chain of in-step whispers turns the wave clean around. Today is the fuller theory.
Today is the fuller theory. So let's earn the in-step claim one echo at a time. Follow two echoes, one born at some atom, the other at its neighbor, one station further along. The wave that births the neighbor's echo travels one spacing further down the road before it reflects, and the echo travels that spacing back to rejoin its partner. An extra round trip of twice the atom spacing. For the pair to march in step, that round trip must be one whole wavelength, or any whole count of them. Pocket the higher counts, we'll spend them later. Take the simplest. The latecomer arrives having completed a full cycle, indistinguishable from its partner. One whole wavelength equal to twice the atom spacing. There's the condition, and there's your wavelength.
Round trip of two spacings, one full cycle. So the wavelength that gets turned around is twice the atom spacing. Every deeper atom just adds another full lap.
Lap after lap, echo after echo. Every one down the endless line lands in step with all the others. Each one is a whisper. The alignment is the whole game. A whisper repeated in phase, atom after atom after atom, becomes a shout, and the forward wave is turned around entirely. A fainter hum only makes the turnaround slower. It never lets the wave through. And say it in twist language. A wavelength of twice the atom spacing is a twist of pi over the atom spacing. The zone edge. The lattice grabs the electron hardest exactly where the motion episode said it would.
So at that one twist, the traveller can't stay a traveller. Equal parts forward wave and turned around wave is a wave going nowhere. Standing waves, crests nailed in place. The same standstill both earlier episodes found, reached this time from the open highway side. And the diatomic chain trained me on what to ask next, because a standing wave at a zone edge has to drape itself onto the lattice somehow, and the draping is where the physics lives. How many ways can it sit?
Exactly 2, same as ever. The standing wave's crests, where the electron piles its presence, have to land somewhere, and the lattice offers exactly 2 seatings. Draping 1, crests riding on the atom sites themselves, a crest at every dip, quiet on the ridges. Draping 2, slide the whole pattern over by half a repeat. Crests centered on the midpoints between atoms, up on the ridges, with a node sitting on every atom. Same wavelength, same twist label, 2 different homes. And now we weigh them, as the diatomic chain taught us. Put each wave on the scale of the potential and ask where its weight actually rests. Down in the dips, or up on the ridges.
The series has drilled the tariff into me. Atoms are wells, and sitting near a well is cheap. So the wave, with its crests on the atoms, rests its weight on cheap ground. It should settle below the free electron's energy, cheaper by whatever the hum is worth. And the other one, crests between the atoms, my instinct says it simply misses the lattice. Its weight sits away from every well, so it has nothing to gain and nothing to lose. It stays parked on the parabola. 1 wavelength, 2 energies, and the daylight between them is the hum's depth.
Right up until the last step. There's no neutral ground to park on. The hum is a rise and a fall. Every dip at an atom comes with a ridge between atoms, and the between atoms wave lays its crests squarely on the ridges. The expensive ground, dearer than average, not indifferent at all. So neither wave stays put. Measured against the free electron's energy at that twist, the crests on atom's wave settles below it, cheaper by the hum's depth. And the crests between wave is pushed above it by the same amount. It's the seesaw from the diatomic molecule back on duty, balanced this time around the parabola. The dips dig as far below the flat road as the ridges rise above it, so the 2 rents straddle the free energy evenly. Total daylight, twice the hum's depth. And the scope, said plainly, that tidy factor is the gentle hum answer, the leading word of a longer story, the same standing as the diatomic chain's gap, equaling the well difference. True in this model, never to be quoted as a law of nature.
George, hold the 2 episodes up to the light, because they're the same argument wearing different weather. At the diatomic chain's zone edge, 2 drapings paid 2 rents, all the weight on deep wells or all of it on shallow ones. And the gap was the daylight between the rents. Today, at this zone edge, crests on wells or crests on ridges. 2 rents again, daylight of twice the hum's depth. But there, the lattice was everything. Deep wells, rare hops, and we had to double it to make a gap. Here, the lattice is barely there at all, and the gap opens anyway. Same weighing, same mechanism, seen from the opposite shore.
That's the rhyme, and it's the deepest fact of the day. The gap mechanism doesn't care which shore you launched from. 2 standing waves at 1 wavelength, weighed differently by the medium. At a zone edge, that is what a gap is made of, whether the weighing is deep wells against shallow ones or dips against ridges. And the knob reads the same in both stories. Strengthen the hum and the daylight widens. Fade the hum and the daylight thins. But so long as the hum is real, it never closes. As for the strip between those two energies, forbidden means what the diatomic episode taught us it means. Not expensive. Unavailable. The crystal has no wave to sell you there.
Let me test unavailable the way I tested it back then, because it still sounds too absolute. Couldn't some clever wave split its weight, a portion resting down in the dips, a portion up on the ridges, and pay itself a rent partway between the two?
It can split its weight. What it can't do is hold a definite energy while doing it. A blend of the two drapings isn't a steady state. It sloshes between the rents rather than paying one of its own, exactly as it did at the diatomic chain's edge. At that wavelength, the definite energy menu has exactly two entries, and the strip between them belongs to neither. Now one more piece of bookkeeping, and the free electron road is complete. The moment the hum switched on, the medium acquired a repeat distance, and you know by now what a repeat brings with it.
Redundancy. And with redundancy, the zone. Twists a full turn per spacing apart just became the same filing label, so K stopped living on an endless line and started living on a circle, a zone, running from minus pi over the atom spacing to plus pi over the atom spacing. But the parabola was drawn on the endless line. The open highway ran off to forever. So all of that highway now has to be filed inside the zone. The diatomic chain showed us the move, and the singing lattice ran it again, crease and fold. The outer stretches of the highway's map come back in as new branches stacked over the home stretch. New filing labels, nothing physical moved.
Fold the road map. That's the move. Crease at the zone edge, fold the map back over itself. Crease again, fold again. The endless parabola comes back into the zone as a stack of rising branches, layer upon layer.
Hold on, let me make sure of one thing. A wave 2 floors up is just a shorter wavelength wave that used to live outside the zone, refiled, yes?
Just that. The fold moves ink, not physics. The upper branches are old highway wearing new labels. Now watch where the folded branches meet, because a meeting is two states at one twist agreeing in wavelength. A forward wave and a turned-around wave sharing a station. Wherever that happens, at the zone edge down low, then at the zone center 1 floor up, then out at the edge again, alternating up the stack. The hum does exactly what it did at the bottom, weighs the two standing waves against the landscape and pries the meeting apart. And here's where we spend the pocketed counts. A meeting 1 floor up is the echoes arriving 2 whole wavelengths apart. In step again, off a shorter ripple. A real hum can be a chord, ripples stacked on ripples, and each meeting is pried by the ingredient whose ripple falls in step with that wave's weight pattern. So a soft, pure hum leaves the upper creases barely open. Step back and look at what remains. Broad, almost free bands separated by thin slivers of forbidden energy at the creases. Band, gap, climbing the energy axis. The same furniture tight binding handed us with the proportions reversed. There, narrow bands and wide gaps. Here, wide bands and thin gaps.
Before you pin that drawing up, I get to spring my old trap once more. Painted atoms on the diatomic chain, equal masses on the singing lattice. And I'm not missing this one. Dial the hum down to nothing. Every sliver of daylight closes. The branches touch at every crease. And what's left is a folded parabola, filed inside a zone that no longer has any right to exist. That's not a band structure. That's a free electron wearing new filing labels. A paint job. And it lands the same way here. The fold only becomes physics when the hum is real, because the daylight at the creases is the one thing on the drawing that bookkeeping can't fake.
Sprung perfectly. And notice it's been the same dial every time, wearing a different name. Well difference, mass difference, hum depth. Set the dial to nothing and the gap's shut. The fold is filing, and the physics is whatever it was before you picked up the pen. Turn the dial up and the creases open into truly forbidden strips, which means you now hold two complete independent stories of how a band comes to be, built from opposite ends of the world. Time to put the two drawings side by side and close the pincer.
Then let me lay road 2 out end to end, because it deserves one clean telling. Start with a free electron on an open highway, a parabola, every energy for sale, no zone because no repeat. Switch on the faintest hum and almost nothing changes. The highway stays open at nearly every speed, except that every atom whispers back an echo, and at one wavelength, twice the atom spacing, the echoes all arrive in step, and the whispers become a shout that turns the wave around. Forward plus turned around locks into 2 standing waves, one weighed on the dips and one on the ridges, and the weighing splits a single energy into 2, with daylight of twice the hum's depth between them. Fold the highway's map into the newborn zone, and every crease repeats the trick higher up. Broad bands, thin gaps, stacked to the sky.
Now the side-by-side. Drawing 1. Tight binding, the shore this series was born on. Start from atoms, each holding its ladder of sharp levels. Rare hops smear every level into a narrow band, the width bought entirely by hopping, and the gaps between bands are the leftovers of the big spacings between atomic levels. Wide and generous, the default. Drawing 2. Nearly free, today's shore. Start from the open highway and its one broad parabola. The hum cuts thin forbidden slivers into it at the creases, bands wide, gaps narrow, the defaults reversed. 2 opposite starting points, 2 opposite sets of proportions, and the same skeleton in the same places. Bands, zones, edges, gaps, all sitting at the same twists. That agreement is not luck.
It's 2 artists sketching the same skyline from opposite banks of a river. One stands on the atoms bank and builds the skyline out of buildings, sharp levels, barely smeared, and discovers the strips of sky between them. The other stands on the free bank and starts from one unbroken tower, the parabola, and discovers strips of sky slicing into it. Same skyline in both notebooks, opposite pen weights. But what guarantees that? What's standing in the middle of the river making the 2 of them agree?
Bloch's theorem, the pincer's hinge. Both drawings are the same theorem wearing different clothes. The theorem asks for one thing, repetition, and hands back the only wardrobe any wave on a repeat is permitted. Stencil, carrier, twist on a circle. Hence bands, zones, gaps. Tight binding is Bloch, with the stencil inked heavy and the carrier faint. The atomic costume dominates and the bands come out narrow. Nearly free is Bloch, with the carrier loud and the stencil a thin wrinkle. The rolling wave dominates and the bands come out broad. Neither one is the truth of a solid, they're opposite ends of the one family the symmetry allows. And that is what a law of crystals means. The furniture was never a product of our modelling choices. Any wave on any repeat must wear it.
Then no real crystal has to choose a shore. The shores are limits, and actual matter lives out on the river. So give me one material carrying both drawings at once, and make it one this series already knows.
Sodium, the metal this series keeps reaching for. Its inner electrons live buried deep in each atom's well, and to them, the neighbouring atom is a distant rumour. Hops next to never happen, so those levels barely smear at all. Narrow, atomic, tight-binding bands through and through. Its outermost electron is the opposite story. It roams the whole crystal, and to aroma like that, the deep cores blur into a faint background hum under its feet. Its band is broad, sweeping, parabola-like, nearly free. One crystal, both shores, one formalism holding the whole ledger. And our own field crosses this river on a knob. In an optical lattice, ease the lasers down, and the wells fade toward a hum. The atoms go nearly free. Crank the lasers up, and the wells deepen until hops go rare. Tight binding. The entire pincer, dialed by hand in a single afternoon.
That settles an account I've been carrying since the Fermi Sea. That whole episode treated the crowd in a metal with free electron arithmetic. A sea with a depth, a waterline, a shoreline racing along. And it quoted real copper while standing on a lattice of wells the entire time. We knew the wells were down there. The sea just shrugged. Why was that legal?
Because near the bottom of a band, a Bloch electron and a free electron are the same animal with a different name on the collar. And after today, that's not a convenience, it's guaranteed. Any smooth band bottom is locally a parabola, and the motion episode taught us to read a parabola's curvature as a mass. The effective mass, light where the band curves hard, heavy where it runs flat. So near its band bottom, an electron in a crystal responds to every push exactly like a free electron with a retuned mass. The entire lattice, wells and whispers and all, swallowed into one number. And for a broad, nearly free band like sodium's or copper's, the parabola survives essentially unbent all the way up past the waterline. Thin slivers of daylight only at the far creases. So free electron arithmetic holds through the whole sea, with the effective mass absorbing what little retuning there is. Bloch guarantees smooth bands. Smooth bands have parabolic bottoms, and a parabolic bottom is a free electron in costume. The sea was standing on the theorem the whole time.
Here's the pincer then, as I'll carry it out of this episode. The shores were never places a crystal has to live. They're limits, and real matter rides the river between them, sodium running both at once. And the effective mass is the exchange rate that lets free electron thinking keep working deep inside a lattice. Bands aren't something our models make, they're something crystals are.
And the promotion has already paid out once, quietly. Last episode's phonons were classical waves, wearing this full wardrobe. So let me cash the showiest part of it. Light. Build a periodic medium for light. A stack of thin, transparent layers, alternating between two materials, repeating with one fixed period. A crystal whose atoms are layers. Every boundary between layers reflects a passing light wave weakly. A whisper of an echo, just as before. You already know the ending. At the in-step wavelength, the whispers become a shout. The light is sent straight back the way it came, and a whole band of colors around that wavelength is forbidden from crossing the stack. A mirror, built not from silver, but from repetition itself. A gap for light.
A gap for light. So if that forbidden band happens to sit among the colors we can see, the stack refuses one band of color and hands it straight back to your eye. Is that something nature has already built? Is that a color you'd recognize?
You've been admiring it your whole life. The blue of certain butterflies isn't a pigment. There's no blue dye anywhere in the wing. The wing scales are built as layered stacks, pitched so that blue sits inside the gap. Blue can't get in, so blue is what comes back out to your eye. Grind such a wing to powder and the blue vanishes because you destroyed a repetition, not a dye. An opal plays the same game in every direction at once. A neat packing of tiny glassy spheres, a repeat wherever you look. And its fire is the gap sliding as your viewing angle changes, handing back a different color with every turn of your wrist. And engineers now cut this structure to order and call the results photonic crystals. Zone and gap bookkeeping for light, steering beams around corners, trapping colors in cavities. band structure with the quantum entirely optional.
And the in-step condition ought to run backwards, shouldn't it? Everything today used a known spacing to find the special wavelength. Flip it. If I know my wavelength and I hunt for the directions where the whispers shout, then I've measured the spacing. The shout becomes a ruler.
That's X-ray diffraction, and it's how humanity learned what the inside of a crystal looks like. X-rays are light with wavelengths down at the scale of atom spacings. Light finally short enough to hear the atomic rhythm. Shine them through a crystal, and almost every direction stays dark. Whispers out of step, arrows scattered around the dial, a sum that walks in circles. Then, at just the right angles, a shout, an in-step chorus rising off whole families of atomic planes, and the geometry of each shout reads out a spacing. Salt, metals, minerals, and in time the molecules of life itself gave up their architecture to this trick. The same alignment that pries open an electron's band gap run in reverse as a measuring instrument.
Gather the whole series up then, because a loop just closed. We put one electron on a chain of identical wells, and hopping smeared its sharp level into a band. We read the band's slope as speed and its curvature as mass. Exclusion poured in the crowd and built a silent sea with a busy shoreline. Two kinds of well pried open the gap when the cell doubled, and unbolting the atoms turned the same mathematics into sound. Today, the pattern underneath it all stood up and gave its name: any wave on any repeat. Amplitude, swing, or light must be a rolling wave in a repeating costume, so bands, zones, edges, and the gaps we watched open were never accidents. And then we walked in from the opposite shore, with no wells at all and the faintest hum, and the same gaps opened at the same twists for the same reason: two standing waves, weighed differently. The pincer didn't just close. It never had anywhere else to close.
And that's the sentence I most wanted this series to earn. Bands are not an accident of our models. They are a law of crystals. We didn't build bands out of tight binding. Tight binding was one costume the law wears, the hum was another, and a butterfly's wing is a law-abiding crystal that has never heard of an electron. When the same structure arrives from both ends of every road you can walk, in every medium that can wave, you stop crediting the road and start crediting the ground. The ground is repetition. That's the theorem's whole teaching, and it's why the subject is called what it's called. The physics of what repeats.
So what's left, George? Because that sounded dangerously like a series finale. The theorem crowned, the pincer closed, the old debts paid. And yet I noticed nobody has said the word finale.
Far from it, because everything we've built, every episode of it, lives on a one-lane road. One line of atoms, one twist axis, water lines that are a pair of points. Real crystals are sheets and blocks, and going up in dimension isn't more of the same, it buys new sights. The waterline of the Fermi Sea stops being a pair of points and becomes a shape. A closed curve on a sheet, a whole sculpted surface inside a block. The Fermi surface, whose geometry becomes the entire personality of a metal. And on one particular sheet, carbon atoms arranged in a honeycomb, two interleaved sublattices, the diatomic trick drawn flat, the two bands touch in a way no chain can imitate, and the electrons near that touching point behave as if they have no mass at all. That sheet is called graphene, and you've been writing with it since childhood. Pencil lead is a stack of those honeycomb sheets, shedding onto the page as you drag it.
Massless electrons riding in a pencil line. That's where we're headed, and I'll be there early. Until then, your homework is a treasure hunt. Find a colour that won't hold still, an opal, a beetle's shell, the blue flash of a butterfly wing. Tilt it in the light, and know that you're watching a band gap out in the open air, a zone edge doing its work with no electron anywhere in the story. Then come back, because next time we finally leave the one-lane road. The waterline grows into a shape, The honeycomb makes electrons forget their mass, and the whole subject gets room to breathe. Thanks, everyone.